To steal a line from a Beastie Boys 1980s classic, you have to fight for your right to be Harley. The problem right now for the most talked about footballer in Australia is the spotlight doesn't just find Harley. He has no problem finding it either. Coming off a much improved performance against Brisbane in a Gabba heat chamber that was still laced with imperfections, Harley hogged the headlines. West Coast number 9 won 6 clearances, laid 7 tackles and was clean around stoppage, a trait that helped other Eagles midfielders stake a serious claim in a game against the reigning premier. And that's a big step forward from round 1, where all he seemed to want to do was wrestle. But then came the not-so-good stuff. 7 free kicks against and flipping the bird to a Brisbane fan. Eagles coach Andrew McQualter said post-game it was all part of the theatre and he hoped that still belonged in the game. And yes, it was fun. But the AFL has asked for a please explain, which suggests it is not okay in this landscape. And then, 24 hours later, a short-lived change to his Instagram profile with a picture of Ben Cousins offering the digit. It was promptly removed, no doubt on sage advice, that it was only pouring petrol on the flames, which of course it was. The truth is, Harley is a second-year player. He turns 20 next month. Patience is required while his body and mind takes AFL shape. Footy fans just want to see him at his best. And as the West Australian's Craig O'Donoghue wrote in Tuesday's paper, it would be good to hear from the kid too. Down the freeway, Justin Longmuir's Dockers were better. Much better. They were better at the contest and better at controlling momentum at times. But they still haven't found a way to win the close ones. That might seem harsh in a game that could have gone the other way if it had lasted one more second. But their decision-making in key moments hurt them against the Swans. It is only round 3, but the Dockers have now lost 6 in a row, and a defeat in Sunday's Western Derby will intensify the heat on the coach. That's just the way it is in AFL land. Can Harley reenact his crazy Derby debut from last season? Can Freo find a way against a side that is coming off the longest trip in the AFL and in recovery mode from a Gabba furnace on and off the field? This is the narrative of the 60th Western Derby. I'm joined by Craig O'Donoghue from the West Australian. We are brought to you by Tab Touch. Got the touch? Download the Tab Touch app today. What's gambling really costing you? Cod, you and I have been at training. You've been at Freo, I've been at West Coast. Not much happened, but we can give listeners a bit of an insight into the injury status of both teams. Firstly, what's happening at Freo?
Yeah, so we should say on a Tuesday morning when both teams have played on a Sunday, not a shock that not much is happening. It's a genuine recovery session. Kick the legs over. They never really do a hell of a lot. It's just to try to get rid of some of the soreness. But from an injury perspective, that's all that matters on Tuesday. And the big news from Fremantle is that Sean Darcy will officially return to main training on Thursday. So he will join whatever match simulation they do, 18v18, all that sort of stuff, and test his body out with a view to playing some sort of football next weekend. Not this weekend, next weekend. So that puts him 1 week away.
That is big news. Well, that has been the big issue, hasn't it, the ruck?
Yeah, so we've seen how they've battled. They've had to make a decision between Liam Reedy in week 1 and Pat Voss in week 2. Now, you would assume that Darcy's going to take some time to get himself into a position where he can even be considered for selection in AFL.
So are we talking coming through Peel Thunder?
I would have thought he'd have to run around a couple of times for Peel Thunder, especially with the way they've treated Nat Fyfe and said we're going to be conservative and look after his body as much as possible. He's done a half into 3/4, likely to play a full game this week rather than coming into the Derby. When you look at Michael Walters, he came into that Indigenous All-Stars game after knee surgery, played a half there, then played in the Melbourne game and then got hurt again. So they'd be very worried about breaking someone like Darcy down, just as they are with Fyfe. So, yeah, I wouldn't have thought we'd be seeing Darcy for still a fair amount of time, but good to see him out there and able to run around again because he was stiff. Like, he was on track to return and then has an ankle infection. I mean, with the screw that was put in there a couple of years ago, you can be desperately unlucky sometimes.
Let's hope it's all behind him.
Yeah, absolutely. The other news is Hayden Young, 1 week, so he's getting closer as well. No news yet on Brandon Walker following his dislocated shoulder. That looks like a bad one.
He hasn't had much luck either, has he?
Nah, so I don't think we'll be seeing him for a hell of a long time. And Sam Switkowski is 1 to 2 away with that groin. What about at West Coast?
Okay, interesting at West Coast, similar. And you can add the dimension of the Gabba on Sunday. So brutally hot, played at midday. We don't know why that happened. 87% humidity. We saw Bailey Williams go off with an all-body cramp. So no Oscar Allen, no Bailey Williams, no Liam Duggan today. Not surprising, given the recovery from that really gruelling trip. In fact, the main group trained for less than an hour and they didn't do much. Left the track. No real insights. I think Jack Graham, he's going to be a test this week with that hip. Flew over to Brisbane, didn't play, didn't do much enough today, Cod, for me to give you any real insight. I'd guess that he may be another week. Didn't do anything. Just did a couple of really slow laps and then just basically a couple of kicks to himself. That was it today. Jake Waterman's the interesting one. He completed the training session, did a little bit of, they only did a short, sharp match sim, but he was going at half rat pace and I just noticed he just was a bit unsteady on that calf. It's a back-related calf issue and look, I hope he proves me wrong because they really need him for the Derby. But just from what I saw today, I'd be doubtful he will get up this week.
You got to worry when you got those when it's back related, especially. You're going to get smashed a few times in any game of footy, let alone in a Derby. And at this early point of the season, you'd rather miss one too many than go out one too early and then miss a month afterwards.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. It's a big game, but it's round 3, so you've got to get these players right. West Coast, fantastic segue for our next subject because we've got to talk about Harley. Now, I've just come from a Liam Duggan press conference and the co-captain spoke in glowing terms about Harley, said he's never seen anything like the scrutiny a kid gets put under in his second year, described him as a great human being, said, I wish people knew him how we know him. We love playing with him. Now, I asked him about the weekend, 7 free kicks, the combative way he flips the bird, all the stuff that's happened around that. And he said, look, 7 free kicks isn't ideal, but there's a lot of technique there. There's a lot about the combative way he plays. And we just, we saw for 3 quarters, so a bit slow to start, but for 3 quarters, the sort of Harley we want. And so I think I think around stoppage he was really clean and helped them, helped bring other players into the game. So they shook it up a bit, the Eagles, but that was Liam Duggan's opinion. So that was really interesting. Harley, so he's no matter where he goes, the spotlight follows, Cod.
Yeah, that's correct.
And really, he didn't do himself any favours 24 hours after. Now, whether you think there was just fun flipping the bird or whatever, the AFL has asked him for a please explain. So clearly they don't like it. But even if you think it's theatre and fun, 24 hours later, he puts the image of Ben Cousins up on his Instagram doing the same thing many years earlier. It just doesn't help him.
No, that was stupid. There's no doubt about that. And some of his behaviour on the weekend and in the previous week was a bit petulant as well. It's interesting because he's had nothing but positive publicity. Everyone talks about the amount of publicity that he's had. For 3 years, it's been Harley's amazing, Harley's amazing, Harley's amazing. He's the next coming. He's going to be a superstar, $20 million over 10 years. He is the greatest thing since sliced bread. He's worth 3 first-round draft picks. He is going to transform the game. He is a generational footballer. Now he's copying the other side of the game where if you don't live up to expectations, you cop a little bit more scrutiny, and you certainly cop more scrutiny from the opposition, and he's finding it to be a lot more challenging. So it's something that he has to deal with because this is what it's going to be as a superstar player. And it's one of the reasons why I've always felt that the number 1 draft pick deserves more than the 10 grand that they get when they get drafted. They deserve 100 on top of everything for being pick 1 because, give them $100,000 and say, this is just to help you with the scrutiny you're going to have to live with forever because it doesn't go away from you. But when you add in the fact that for 12 months, it was almost 18 months, we were told this guy's the greatest things in sliced bread. He's going to be the number 1 draft pick. And everyone talked about him for a year. Then West Coast gave him number 9. Good luck.
The day he was drafted. And gave away free number 9s for every jumper purchased on that day.
The theatre around that. Like, if he was given 29, like Clay Hall got, it just changes the way he's perceived then. And there was all the other promotional elements with him being such a high-profile footballer now, and with all of his publicity, and he's the ambassador for the Caulfield Cup, he's the ambassador for the NBL, he's selling all these products. He's just different in every single way. So yes, when all that's around you, you are going to have to learn to deal with it. And then when the negative stuff comes, which it eventually will because you're going to have bad games, that's been really hard for him to handle. And I do wonder why he's not living with a host family, and last year lived with a mate and now lives with his girlfriend when everyone says he's only 19. Well, there's questions around that. So the whole package may have fallen on top of him at the moment. He doesn't look happy. He does look stressed.
He does.
And I'd love to see the Harley that we saw in his draft year, not last year, the Harley we saw in his draft year where he was talking a lot and telling his story and you got to know him, got to understand him. I think we need to see that version of Harley rather than everyone else talking about him. I mean, let's humanise Harley and hear from him again and let him talk about himself because he's really interesting.
It's a great column by you today where you suggested that. And I think let's get him out there exactly. And that eases the pressure.
Yeah. It does, and it lets us know who he is again. Don't hide him away. Don't pump him up to be this amazing player, this amazing person, this amazing ambassador, but don't let him talk. Because I saw him at the airport last week on the way to Brisbane. There was a bunch of kids who were from New South Wales who were hiding sort of back in the background. When's Harley going to arrive? When's Harley going to arrive?
Everyone knows who Harley is.
Yeah. They saw Harley, they took photos of him from a distance. No one asked him for an autograph, so he was under no obligations, but he looked stressed walking near them.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, we hadn't seen Andrew McQualter arrive at all. Hadn't seen Jaden Hunt arrive at all. We found out afterwards they'd flown up earlier. So I went upstairs just to make sure we hadn't missed them. And as Harley walked past, he looked at us and said, why are you here as well? You know, and we weren't there for him. We were there to see if we could spot if Andrew McQualter was getting on the plane, because if he's crook, well, that's a problem. He was going up to work with the Brisbane Broncos the day before in the end. But everything feels like it's on top of him, and I worry that he's feeling a bit like a victim at the moment, whereas he should be having this is an exciting challenge for me on the field, and everything else is just peripheral.
Is there any way you see them giving him a spell in the waffle?
There's no way known he's playing in the
because
waffle.
of what he's going to cop in the waffle.
He's just not playing in the waffle. I can see them sending him home for a weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can absolutely see that happening. Not for this week, I wouldn't have thought. But for an away trip, I reckon, there's a very strong chance they could say, you know what, don't come back. Stay in Melbourne for the week, don't play in the next game, or miss a game leading into a Melbourne game potentially, so he can go home and spend time in Tongariro. He did it last year. They sent him home last year for a weekend and rested him, so I could definitely see that happening. But it's just, he seems like he's just not enjoying life at the moment. And lots of people have talked about him, haven't they, who have been in that situation. It's been fascinating to listen to some of the other views. What have you made of
everyone's had an opinion on Harley this week. Look, I think at the end of the day, I agree with you, basically. I think he should be able to sit there, tell his story, and then you don't have to do it every week, but just let people hear from him. And you humanise him and you ease the pressure a bit. I think we'd all love to see a great derby this week and Harley to star in it. Let's be honest about it. That's what we want to see. We saw it. We didn't see a great derby necessarily, but we saw him star early last year in that upset win. So... I think a little less of the combative stuff. I mean, I know it's part of his game, but I thought he was better at the weekend, strangely. I really do. I know he copped a lot of scrutiny over the flipping the bird and what have you, but I actually thought he was better after quarter time. I thought we started to see what we expect of him. So I just hope that there's more of that and less of just the wrestling and, just try and get on with the game a bit.
Yeah, because the previous week, everyone talked about how he got far too involved with the wrestling and the fighting side of things.
Round one,
and West Coast said, we're going to talk to him about that and we're going to change the behaviour. But the behaviour didn't change greatly other than in terms of his agitation, I'm talking about. Like, he was still agitated with a lot of things.
It's going to keep happening. It's going to keep coming because they know they can get to him. So he's got to prove to them, no, you can't get to me anymore. I'm just going to focus on the footy. So waste your energy if you like, but it's not going to get to me.
But even the throwing the arms out earlier, and when Dermot Burton's criticising you for doing things, because Dermot's very level-headed with the way he approaches the game. And he loves the theatre and he loves the combative nature. And even he was saying, Harley, don't do that. Get on with the game. And I thought that was really telling, because Dermot backs the lad. He loves the lad. So when he's saying that, I thought that showed that he definitely crossed a bit of a line there as well. But at some point, as West Coast, you have to choose when to whack him internally, and you have to learn when to cuddle him internally as well. I reckon last week they needed to whack him. This week they need to cuddle him, but I don't think they really whacked him last week.
It's a tough one. I don't think they've worked it out yet. But let's hope they get there. He could do worse than to look at James Sicily. So you'll recall James Sicily earlier in his career. You could just get inside his head, and you'd put him off his game.
Yep.
And he'd do stupid things. But he eventually learned, they're just going to come at me every week. And if I just learn to just try and fight my way through it, but not necessarily by fighting, but just playing good footy, it can make a world of difference. And now you see Sicily, you see players go to him, it just doesn't work anymore. And he's become a really complete player.
Yeah, and Juddy copped it as well.
Yeah.
Juddy copped it from Stephen Baker and fought back one day. I remember, and just couldn't get anywhere near the footy. And then went, no, I'll just be the burst player that no one can stop. I'll get free kicks because the umpires will see me being held. I'll just take the game on. I do think there's no better scenario than playing in a derby this week for him, because the West Coast crowd will be raucous. They will be as behind him as they've ever been, because not only because of the week that he's had, but because it's against Freo. So it adds that extra element. And if he can get up and about early, if they can feed him the footy as much as possible, if you want to start a fight for the rest of the team and leave Harley out of it, then the crowd will love it. A derby will change things. It gives you the energy, and if he has fun in a derby against a Fremantle team that is shorter than him, isn't as strong as him physically, isn't as fast as him out of that centre square, he's a legitimate game changer in this game, because Fremantle lack the type of player to stop him. So he could tear it apart, and then everything changes. And then all of a sudden he's happy again.
Looked like he was having fun last year at times, and it just doesn't look like he's having it. It looks like a burden this year, so that's the difference. We'll get on to West Coast in a minute, Cod. I just want a bit of news today. I just want to take you there. So this is really good news for Queensland, because I was starting to get worried about the 2032 Olympics. It was going to be an absolute national embarrassment, because they could not. The dithering over venues was been ridiculous. But today, Queensland government's announced the construction of a new 60,000-seat stadium in Victoria Park. That will be the new home of the Brisbane Lions following the 2032 Olympics. Now, Cod, we won't. That's great news.
Yes,
but I just think, tell our listeners about the Gabba, because it's just been old and dilapidated for too long.
It's really old. Like, the visitors' change rooms on the outer side of the ground, like there's pipes hanging above your head as you're walking through, and it feels like you're in a corridor at one point, and then you got to walk through an area where there's sort of a meeting area.
Like Subi used to be?
Yeah, but worse than what old Subi. It feels, the change rooms actually feel a bit more like you're at a waffle venue or at a VFL venue rather than an AFL venue. It's hard to get to as a fan, so you can't drive and park there. If you are catching the train to get there, it's probably about a 20 to 25 minute walk from the train station in the city. So it's not easy to get to. If it rains, good luck. Like, just getting in and out of there in the wet is just impossible. There's a couple of pubs that are nearby which people like to get to early and stuff, but it doesn't feel like you're at an event when you're heading there. Having been to a few games there, and especially in 2020 during the COVID year when I was working up there a lot. So it's in a strange location. It's never really in recent years attracted big crowds for the cricket because of the location as well. So I think it's old now. It needs to be a venue that holds a lot of people, like 60,000, as you said, for the Lions, given how well they're playing. And you want it to be somewhere where you go, we have to go to the Gabba. Whereas now it's, we have to go to the Gabba. And it's a big difference. So I'm not sure where Vic Park is in terms of how it sets up around transport and the city and things like that.
One thing I'll give Brisbane, its transport's pretty good. Like, when you combine the trains and the water, taxis are fantastic around Brisbane. If you've ever done that.
So getting around like that's good. Just getting to the footy's hard.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, because it's a bit out, poking, it's out the way a bit.
Yeah, it's not in the city. It's just a little bit too far out. So giving them a new venue will be fantastic.
That is great news. Now, let's pull apart a few games, and we'll start with Freo. As a proud major sponsor of the Fremantle Football Club, Woodside has accepted the challenge of supporting local footy at all levels, from grassroots to greatness, so it can thrive throughout Western Australia. Woodside, Australia's leading energy company. COD. We'll look at the game, but the question is, I think the pressure eased on West Coast a little bit at the weekend. Horrible round one. I thought they were very good against Brisbane at the weekend. Freo, I thought, was a hell of a lot better than they were in round one, but still didn't get the job done. How important is this game for the coach, Justin Longmuir, in terms of, if he doesn't win this, or if they don't win this, the heat is well and truly on.
Oh, absolutely. The heat is not on him right now because
it's getting
Geelong
hotter,
and
though.
Sydney.
Yeah.
But the match is sitting there being ready to be thrown on the bonfire. And the reality is if they lose this, it's 7 losses in a row from the 4 last year, and there would be 3 this year. And to lose to West Coast would be a total disaster for them. Whereas in Geelong, you go, horrible performance, but the 4 points we didn't expect them to get. Sydney,
except that they'd won their last 2 there.
Yeah, but they took a young team down there. I can understand them losing that one.
Okay.
I can't understand how they spend all summer focusing on we're going to be better, we're going to be better, we're going to be better when the game is on the line and we're not going to do what happened last year. And then
the late scenarios, which they trained.
They trained it over and over and over again, and they fell apart again when the big moments arrived. So you can say, yeah, but Jai Amos would mark the ball with half a second after the siren. That's fine. He still would have had to kick the goal. They didn't. They had a 10-point advantage in the last quarter. They was 9 points up when they were going forward at one point, and Pat Voss kicked to the centre square when he should have gone down the line. They made other mistakes. They allowed Sydney to take marks inside 50. The basic mistakes that they've said they were going to work and learn from, they didn't work and learn from. So that's the concern for them. And I think that's where they just need to win their next close one. Could you imagine what it will look like if they lose another close one at any point of the season, like in their own heads? Like, imagine what that's going to do to them if they don't win the next close one.
Yeah, you need to frank your belief with a win sometimes. So it's massively important for them. Josh Tracy, 4 goals, 2. Fantastic effort in the forward line. I thought Voss looked pretty good. He just centred that ball when he should have missed one late. I don't want to just single him out either because he had plenty of teammates who made wrong decisions at the wrong time. They put themselves in a position to win it. Sydney got lucky a little bit, but they fought their way back. I thought Jackson's game was great. O'Meara was terrific. Driscoll continues to prove to us why he should be in that side. So there were some good signs there, and they... You know, it sounds a bit stiff talking about it. They lost by the narrow margin. It was like, as you said, half a second later, Amos takes the mark and you'd back him in to kick it. But, yeah, they've just got to get a win at the moment, I think.
My concern for them is the expectations surrounding them and that we have to win a flag by 2025. If you look at the last 3 years, the average number of games put on the field by the 23 players who played in the grand final for the Premiers on grand final day was 3,074 games. Fremantle had 1,782 games on the field the other day. So they're 1,300 games short of what the grand finalists, of what the premiers were for averaging in the last 3 years. And the runners-up have averaged more than 3,000 as well. Fremantle don't have more than 3,000 games of football on their entire list, let alone putting 23 blokes out there who can do it. Sydney had 2,500 games of experience out there the other day, compared to 1,782. They're constantly, Fremantle, putting out a team that was less experienced than their opponents by a significant margin, yet they are talking about themselves as a club that's in the window to contend. But the numbers say they're nowhere near a club or a team that has a list profile that will contend. So they've built themselves up hoping they can get there, but I just don't see right now how this list profile can match what history tells us. History tells us you need 3,000 games of experience, and they're putting 1,782 out in the field over the weekend. I'm not sure where the numbers come from that are going to get them to this by the end of the season.
There's some rare examples. I think Essendon in '93 was a rare example of
decades ago.
Yeah, I know,
right?
and it is, and the game has changed a lot. I felt really sorry for Freo and Justin, but you couldn't help but feel happy for Dean Cox at the weekend and the emotion around it, and just doing the pre-match stuff with him hasn't changed much. Cod, he was always a pretty cruisy dude, Dean, I reckon, to deal with. And obviously we know he's immense talent on the field. But it was really telling, I thought, if you look at visuals, reading into it, the Chad Warner stuff.
Yeah.
And can I just say I really like the way Dean Cox has handled the Chad Warner stuff because it's been a really mature professional way of handling it. Look, it's a big decision. We accept that. Chad's got to make it. But we're not putting any pressure on him. He just loves being around his teammates and he loves playing for the footy club. And if it is as suggested, they're going to offer him a new 2-year deal that will take him up to free agency. I'm starting to lean towards him taking that. I think it's looking more and more likely. And you could see the emotion in the rooms after the game. While I'd be disappointed for West Coast or Freo not to get him back in the short term, because they could still get him back later on, I like what I see with him and Sydney at the moment.
And he looks happy and he looks relaxed and doesn't look stressed by the decision, does he? And that's
telling.
That goes back to the Harley thing, doesn't it? Harley looks stressed. West Coast look like they're stressed around him.
Yep.
Sydney looked really relaxed around Chad Warner and like, well, what will be at the moment. We'll just let him play. And the tug of the jumper was the big one, I thought.
It was.
When you start doing that sort of stuff.
Symbolic.
And jumping into your coach's arms. And you can fake this if you wanted to, but after the win, you're not faking it. You're not thinking about it. And that's when your mind's just going, oh, we've won this. What a great environment we're in. It was a sign, I thought, the whole way everything put together from the weekend, that he is leaning towards perhaps staying there. Now, it can change.
Couple of years. Well, it can change, but it's also
6 weeks.
Couple of years, and then you're in free agency. You can still come home.
Yeah, exactly.
The free agency is what it's really about for him. So, Riley Bice, fair goal, 8-2, by the way. And also Amadi, hats off to him, takes the mark, outmuscles Brennan Cox, goes back and kicks. It's not easy to kick that goal.
When he was hurt a couple of minutes before as well.
Yeah. So, I mean, you've got to take your hats off. It was a good win by Sydney, and they were under a lot of pressure too, zipping too. So,
and 4 goals down.
So, credit to them. As I said earlier, impressed with West Coast fight against Brisbane. I think, let's be honest, Cod. At the weekend, I said, someone asked me, what's a good loss for them? I said, inside 6, and they said, oh, no, 8. I'll give them 8. So that was the narrative going into the game. It was hot. They had Jack Graham pull out in the eve of the game. And, I mean, we whacked them the week before, so got to give them some credit here. That was a bloody good performance. It didn't last. I mean, I guess we all sort of in the back of our minds thought Brisbane's going to come back here, and the leadership was telling. But I thought it was a pretty good effort. 19 points in the end. A lot to like about it.
They were fantastic. They had a crack. They just had a fair income crack, and that's all you can ask for as a West Coast supporter. They started well, and then in the second quarter, they didn't drop off. And it reminded me of when we used to do pre-season training, you do 5-1Ks, and some people would take it easy early and just hope to be able to coast through and average a good time. Others would be told, just stick with the front runners, stick with the guys who are the best, and try to stay with them for 2 this week. And then next week, try to stay with them for 3. And then try to stay with them for 4. And eventually you'll stay with them for 5 because you'll build up that fitness. They stay with Brisbane for more than a half. If they can stay with them next time they play them for 3 quarters, they've improved, haven't they? And that's all you got to do when you're a rebuilding team. Stay with the team that is much better than you for as long as you can, and convince yourself that, okay, we can go for another 10 minutes here. We can go for another 5 minutes here. Just stay in the contest. That's all. That's what they did by just persisting and having a crack. Liam Baker's energy was fantastic.
It was, and credit to Tim Kelly, who had a not so good week 1. In fact, it was a horrible week 1, but a really good week 2. So well done to him. Amazing what pressure does.
Yep.
Pressure to turn the ball over and then get it into the forward line as quickly as possible. So we got a bit of a sample of what McQualter wants them to look like, because they didn't have any edge in the contest at all the week before. As a result of all of that, Harry Edwards, I thought, was fantastic against Eric Hipwood, whereas, of course, the week before, as Jerry McGovern said, we left him on an island.
Anyone who says that the scoreboard can be ignored is kidding themselves, because they dropped their heads against Gold Coast, but they got the reward on the scoreboard against Brisbane, which means the energy remains high, and everyone goes, oh, what we're doing is getting the benefits on the scoreboard, so we'll keep having a crack at them, we'll keep running forward, we'll keep pressing up on the bloke who's got the footy. Tyrell Dua was just fantastic as well, and all these different elements they saw, which is so important here. They saw the benefits of following what Andrew McQualter wants them to do, that it can work, that it will work against a really good team, that it will work away. And that first half, they can just bottle that and remember from here on into the future, that works against the premiers from last year. It will work against others. It's just a matter of how long they can make it work for without dropping away throughout a game.
So I'm going to take you back to Thursday night. Hawthorn v Carlton. Carlton, to me, look a bit one-dimensional. It's the contest and then there's no plan B. Might be simplistic of me, but that's how I see it at the moment, and I don't think the metrics lie to me at all. They were in the game. Hawthorn, again, just elite use of the football got them through in that game. It was terrific. And they've got, Carlton's sort of the only real flip they can do is Silvani back or forward, whereas I think Hawthorn showed with Hardwick and again Sicily, forward, back, and worked both times. So they've got some weapons, Hawthorn, and look, it was another good win where not all the stats went their way.
No, their kicking is just ridiculous, isn't it? Like they can turn the game into speed just by the way they moved the ball and hitting targets off half-back and then slicing through the middle and suddenly got a goal and the opposition don't know what's happening. Carlton don't have that speed. They don't have the player who can go in the middle and burst clear from congestion. They've got plenty of blokes who can win it, but they need that outside player.
You know, it's interesting, though, you talk about speed. It's not always about leg speed. It's about speed of ball movement.
Yeah.
So you don't have to be that quick. But you can just move the ball quickly, and I think Hawthorn does that.
D'Ambrosio off half-back
Yeah.
when he kicks the footy. How important, you're a Hawthorn man, the stuff up by the interchange steward and the umpires to not give Carlton the free kick and 50-metre penalty. They were 15 up at the time. Would have got them to 21. So it would have been a free kick to Patrick Cripps as the captain from the centre circle plus a 50-metre penalty. So it becomes a set shot for goal, 35 metres out. He puts that through.
Very important to the game.
During the second quarter,
Absolutely. Very
puts
important
them 4 goals up.
Very
Changes everything. That was a massive stuff up having too many blokes in the field. I do not understand how the AFL allowed that to be wrong. It's a clash of laws between 19 on the field and the 6-6-6
I think there was
rule.
confusion because, and I'm agreeing with you, I think it should have been a free kick, and 50 metres, which is the rule, by the way, as you know. Confusion because it was after a goal.
Yeah,
so there was not a second played where there was 19 players on the field. But the old rules were, you wipe the score for that quarter, and beyond that, it was you wipe the score for the entire game for that team. Now, we don't want that, but I think it should be a free kick and a 50-metre. But, Cod, the other point is, it was a 6-6-6 thing, right? Why do we continue to give a warning for 6-6-6?
Oh, God knows.
How long has it been? 4 or 5 years now?
Yeah.
Give them a free kick.
Longer than that. I reckon it was 2018, 2019.
You're elite. You're schooled in this stuff. If you transgress, it's a free kick to the other side. Forget the warning.
Yeah, that's just ridiculous. There's still a warning. But the stuff up of the law, like, I don't know how some of the field umpires out there didn't go, hang on, what's going on here, and talk to each other through the microphones. I'm not sure why the coach upstairs didn't wire down to someone and say, hang on a minute, what free kick are you paying here? Surely we've got to get the actual law right. Someone had to go, we're getting the law wrong. Like, it's a black and white law. How can we stuff this part up? It just doesn't make any sense to me.
So now, I don't want you to think I'm bagging umpires here, Cod, because you know I don't do that. But Friday night, 33 to 14 free kicks. And while there's no law that says you have to be even. But late in the game, you had Bailey Dale, who I didn't think had control of the footy, gets paid for insufficient intent. Nick Dacos just walks the ball over the boundary line, and it's happened a couple of times this year. He doesn't get pinged. Isaac Quainer goes beneath the legs, right, of I think it was Lockie Bramble. And after the week we'd had, you would think that'd be front of mind, that rule. You really would. I just thought that players would exit that really confused about what the rules are. And fans equally, more so. If I was Footscray fan, and they were Footscray on Friday night, I'd be so dirty leaving that game.
So we talked about this the other week, that there were too many free kicks being paid in a lot of games. What did you say, 33-14?
Yeah, 33-14.
So that's 47 free kicks for the game. I said the other week, I reckon 36 to 38 is the number you want. So I reckon if you've had 47 for the game, I reckon we can say 9 of them were wrong. Just categorically 100% wrong, shouldn't have been paid, just on the statistics alone. The umps got to be trigger happy, paying too many free kicks that were 50-50s or weren't actually there. That's what happens. Frustration builds, and suddenly people make mistakes. I don't think people should walk away from that game looking at it and going, that's how a game is going to be umpired for the year. I think they made a stack of errors that look back on and go, why the hell did we blow the whistle there?
Your boys, Cod.
Terrible.
Essendon v Adelaide. Now, I picked your boys.
You picked my boys.
I did.
You picked Essendon.
Adelaide had not won since 2017, since the year they made the grand final.
They've been terrible. They've barely won anywhere since 2017.
I know. Yes, and I looked at them the week before against, I thought it was a pretty inept St Kilda, by the way. The week before, obviously they redeemed themselves. I was a flip for me, but I went the home venue, and I went on what I thought was a pretty competitive effort against Hawthorn the week before, but I was wrong. And now the narrative, certainly over in the Eastern States, is all on Essendon and what's wrong with the rebuild. Now, we look at their early draft picks. They haven't had a great success with them. You look at the extension of Brad Scott's contract. You look at that. Now, there's a lot of noise around Essendon at the moment and where the hell they're at. What's your take?
So my take is I'm not as worried about the players that we picked as an Essendon fan. When they talk about Zachary, they talk about Nick Cox, Sardis, Archie Perkins, Ben Hobbs. So if you go back to the Cox, Reid, Perkins draft, that was the COVID draft when no one played.
Yep.
And it was a horrible top 20. It's just a disaster. It's like it's a dumpster fire. You look at the players picked after them, there's nothing where you go, that guy's a superstar. So I don't have a problem with the missing there. I don't have a problem with the missing Ben Hobbs.
Didn't Freo pick up Josh Tracy out of that mid-season?
But once
after
again, that was a rookie pick.
Yeah.
So players got missed because they didn't play football for the year.
It was a difficult time too.
Yeah.
There's no sample size really,
exactly.
was it?
So everyone got missed then. That's Ben Hobbs, that was the Campbell Chesser draft as well. So West Coast missed there as well. People were going to get missed because clubs were guessing. The lack of development at the club concerns me. The fact they picked the same type of player, small midfielders all the time, or injury-prone key position players concerns me. Going and getting players from other clubs who are not successful clubs, they're just bringing over blokes who don't know how to win. That concerns me. They can't defend to save themselves. That's
the real concern, and it has been for some time.
Yes, that goes all the way back to Matthew Knights being appointed as an attacking coach way back in 2008. He said, we're a good team who can attack. Everyone else said we need to defend more.
Why does it go back that far when the squad is completely different?
Because that was the approach for 3 years.
So the mentality has hung around.
Then James Hird came in, and then the disaster happened. No one got coached for the next 5 or 6 years because they were trying to make everyone happy and make everyone stay. So I just don't think, from a philosophical point of view, the club went the wrong path when they went with the reasons for appointing Matthew Knights all the way back then. They've never defended well since, and they can't handle, I don't think, and this is a big one, they can't handle being outdoors on the MCG as opposed to indoors at Marvel Stadium. I think they became a Marvel Stadium team, and everything around the way that they set up their tactics. You saw it with St Kilda against Geelong as well. They're a great indoor team, St Kilda. Essendon are a pretty good indoor team. They're a horrible outdoor team.
Yeah, I thought they were tactically good, St Kilda, as well. Adelaide. So Walker, Phil Fogarty, Neil Bullen has really added to them. 300 points they've kicked in 2 weeks. So good are they? I haven't seen their injury list today, but I don't think they've got one.
They got one, I think.
They've
today.
got one.
Yeah, I think it's one.
So good were they? They were able to sub Rankin off.
Ridiculous.
Which I
Crazy.
think that's great for them.
It's insane.
They can do that. Here's a question that's worth pondering. So whose forward line would you rather have, given the history of SEP finals on grounds like the MCG suggests you need your big forwards to win you the game? Hawthorn is going to get back, say, Mitch Lewis and Cal Shadir. But at the moment, it's a really unique, generally small forward line playing around Mabia Chol. Essendon's got these 3 behemoths who are playing with such symmetry, they never get in each other's way. It's actually beautiful to watch the Adelaide forward line at the moment. Whose forward line would you rather have in the finals right now?
Hawthorns.
Yeah, okay.
Modern footy, and you look at last year's grand final with Kel Archie and Kai Lohman and Charlie Cameron all running around there. I like the way small forwards are going at the moment. But what Adelaide have shown is you can have the 3 talls, just don't have them all inside 50 at the one time. Have that lead-up guy. The lead-up forward is just so important. Don't drop the ball on their heads the entire time and have the defenders taking intercept marks. Lead. And Tex Walker leads, Darcy Fogarty leads, and so does Riley Thilthorpe. They're not the kick it to me and let's see what happens. That's what I love about Adelaide.
And Peatling in lets Keys go forward, and he's really playing well as a forward as well as a high forward as well.
Which forward line would you? Would you rather Hawthorn have the talls, or would you rather have the smalls?
I'd rather have another tall or 2 in there. So I'm really liking Adelaide at the moment. I guess it's me, old school. You need the big forwards in September.
That's because you love Dunstall and Dermott and Buddy and Ruffy.
Well, of course,
and
a few others too.
Years,
so
yeah.
at the moment, I'm leaning that way. But Port Adelaide, Richmond, I don't think we really need to summarise this game too much. Apart from, they just beat up on them at home. They had to win. They had to respond. They did so. Richmond, after that fantastic round 1 win over Carlton, came back to earth. They'll take plenty out of it.
Different playing away, isn't it? And different playing at home.
Yeah. Shout out to Georgiades. Terrific game from him. There's the way the ball was coming in, it was going to be really hard for that Richmond defence. But I thought he's really started the season well. And Powell Pepper, it was a great game for him too. So hopefully they build into something here. The usual suspects were there. Rosie, Jace Burgoyne on a wing was terrific. But I think hopefully that's a bit more of what we're going to see from Port. And as we suspected before the season, Richmond will spring a win or 2 here and there, but I think 3 to 4 wins is probably what they're going to finish with.
The max. And the big thing for Port was they showed spirit. And given all the talk around Ken Hinkley and Josh Carr and the changeover, if they were dispirited going into that game in any way, it would have told us a real story. But they came out and played with genuine passion again after that horrible game against the Pies. So that was the most telling thing I thought.
So they're going to need to show it again on Thursday night at Marvel against an Essendon side that's going to be equally determined.
And Essendon is a better team at Marvel, as we just said.
So interesting stuff.
But I'll still be tipping Port.
St Kilda Geelong, I thought Rowan Marshall's game was so good at the weekend in the ruck. I thought it was even better than Cherry's game, which is saying something because he took apart Max Gawn. But I thought tactically it was brilliant. Well done, Chris Scott, found a way back into the game, and it was just a great finish at Marvel. But as you said, they do like playing indoors on that surface. It's a different venue for Geelong. The Max Holmes Windhager tag, really, really interesting. It's going to be something he's going to have to confront a bit more now.
We said about Harley, if you get tagged and it works, Lockie Neal. When it works, everyone goes, oh, maybe that's something we should do a little bit more of. Until you beat it, you get it. So he's going to cop that a fair bit. Ross Lyon at Marvel Stadium is an amazing coach. He's an amazing coach everywhere he goes, really, with what he can do with a footy match. But his ability to put people in the right spots and manipulate the ground makes no game against St Kilda at Marvel is easy no matter who you are. You have to find a way to beat him and what he does with that ground rather than each individual player. It's a coaching game when Ross Lyon is at Marvel.
It is. And Wanganeen Miller well done again, another great game. Jack McRae. So the big knock on Jack McRae at the Dogs was that got a lot of possessions but didn't do a lot of damage with them. Well, I think he's been pretty damaging in the first. Well, certainly at the weekend he was. Didn't much of it. He got plenty of it the week before they got flogged, but I thought he was first class at the weekend.
He's a really good player, just a class footballer who sometimes the role that you have isn't going to allow you to be the star. Like if you're giving the ball to Bontempelli, you're not going to be the person who's using the ball well, or if you're giving the ball to Caleb Daniel, who was obviously there for a long time, or Adam Treloar, who's going to run with the footy, or Bailey Smith, your job's to get it and give. If it changes when you change clubs, suddenly you can remind everyone how good you are.
North Melbourne v Melbourne. So this is a shellacking.
It's bizarre, wasn't it?
I reckon people have gone a bit early though. Now, I'm very happy for North Melbourne. There's this slate of number one draft picks, top 10 draft picks that they've got. They're going to have a great midfield. There's no question about that. The knock's been at the either. So Jack Darling's added something forward. Charlie Comben, terrific game at the weekend down deep in defence. He's going to be elite, I think. But I think we've just gone a little bit early because it seems to be this is the turning point. Nah, it's all over. This is North Melbourne going forward now. Just hold you.
Do it again, North.
Yeah, they need to do it again and again and again. That's what good sides do. So they'll be challenged. But I mean, I was wrapped for them. As I said earlier, Cherry was great. Powell, probably his best game for the midfield ever. Zerha kicks 4 goals. He had 5 scoring shots the week before and didn't kick many. So pleased to see him amongst it. Melbourne, really interesting comments from the coach afterwards about Max Gawn. There's a backstory to every performance. Yes, he was well outplayed by Cherry, but there's a backstory. So we know that there's a family health issue at the Gawn family. So he's come out. There's a lot of commentary over this yesterday, whether Simon Goodwin did the wrong thing or not. Well, Max Gawn answered it today. He said, yes, he did. He said, I'm not making any excuses for my performance. That's my job. But I love the fact that the coach backs me in.
And that's important. If he's happy, that's all that matters, really.
That's all that matters.
If he was unhappy, there'd be a real problem at Melbourne. But if he's comfortable with the way it was handled, even if others at Melbourne weren't, which was the chatter after the game, then as long as Max Gawn's comfortable, then it's okay. And if he... it gives us more of an insight into Max as well, and we can now understand that how good's he been for 2 years. If this has been going on for 2 years, that's the big thing as well. So hopefully, whatever's going on in his private life becomes okay, and that
we wish him the best. I love him. I love Max Gawn. Love the way he goes about his footy. Love the way he plays the game. One of the great rucks of the modern era. So good on him, and I hope it all goes well for him. Cod, you know I get excited this time every week. It's the Thirsty Camel mailbag. And again, we'll be giving away a $50 digital voucher thanks to Thirsty Camel. This week's special, Hahn Super Dry Stubbies, only $53.99 a carton. Purchase a specially marked case of Hahn for your chance to win a super long weekend. Get your questions into TheWestSport at wanews.com.au. Please include your mobile number at the bottom of your email as we will send you a digital voucher if you're a weekly winner. I'm a bit dry in the throat, Cod, because I just knocked over my mask, my cup, and it's not a lie if you believe it, but I'll get through.
You need to go to Thirsty Camel.
I do. This one from Joel. Hi, hey guys, loving the show this year. I was at the Freo game on Sunday in the blazing sun, which leads me to this question. Why on earth were they playing with a yellow night ball? I saw both teams miss marks on the Belmont end of the ground after likely losing it in the sun. 3 p.m. in March in Perth is asking for trouble, though. P.S. Come on, Freo, get going. I well and truly bought into the hype this year. We did mention this.
I hate the yellow ball. I think that is a magnificent bit of observation.
Joel, you've jumped to the head of the queue this week.
The yellow ball during the day makes no sense. So if it gets darker as the game progresses, that's fine. Change the footy at half time if necessary. But when the sun's out, the ball bounces differently.
So you're an umpire. Yep. Tell me about the different...
It's a different lacquer on the ball. It's a different lacquer on the ball.
It's harder to bounce?
It's harder to bounce. It skids when it hits the ground as well. So the players used to take it... I think I said this last week. Players used to take it from us when we walk into the waffle change rooms with the burleys and scratch them on the walls to try to get rid of some of the lacquer.
Is that legal? I suppose.
They can do whatever the hell they want because we wanted it as well because we couldn't hold on to the damn thing. Yeah. The AFL guys used to say to us they used to hate going from the red Sharon to the yellow burley. But I think the yellow ball in general, it's not the same as a red footy. It's harder to hold on to. It skids off the ground rather than bouncing back up for you. So, using a yellow footy during the day doesn't make any sense whatsoever. I'd love to see them trial using a red ball at night. I reckon the lights are good enough now that they might lose it in the
I like the yellow ball at night, though.
Maybe we'll be able to see it still. Who knows? We don't know because we've always used the yellow ball because it used to deteriorate so badly that you had no chance of seeing the old red one. But I'd love to see what would a red ball look like at night? It's pretty bright when you're using 8 of the buggers.
Yeah, fair enough. A very good email, Joel. I think you might have jumped to the head of the queue.
Joel's smart. I like Joel.
First mail for the week. Hey, guys, love the show. I'm perplexed in how JL can say this in his post-game conference. Fine-tuning the team's ability to convert forward 50 entries into scores will be a key improvement moving forward. I've been hearing this crap for the past God only knows how many seasons and nothing has changed. I believe from the experts the squad is sound, so maybe it's the coaches or other players thick. Pat Voss, bless him, gives his all, but he comes across as I'm not very bright, I can lift heavy things and can't kick goals as a forward should.
That's harsh.
Bit harsh. I like Pat Voss. Can you please give me some more insight into what is going on at Fremantle? That's from our old friend, the Phantom. Well... You've got to convert your opportunities.
Yes, but what he's talking about is you get the ball forward to centre and you've got Jeremy Sharp kicking it inside 50 rather than Hayden Young. There's your difference. So Sharp had...
Hayden Young's only a week away.
Yeah, Sharp had 3 chances late in the game and didn't maximise any of them when he was kicking the ball inside 50. I reckon if it had been Young with 1, he would have hit the target. Voss kicking the ball inside 50 as the key forward marking player rather than Jai Amos kicking the ball inside 50. Big difference between those two. Michael Walter's not there, unable to kick it inside 50 for them. Shea Bolton hasn't had the full pre-season to be able to learn his role within the team necessarily yet. Caleb Sarong bombs it in because he's under pressure, doesn't have the speed yet. So you want the ball to be to Nathan O'Driscoll where he can burst clear and then kick it inside 50 with less pressure or give it to someone else. We had the example in the last play where Jordan Clark got it, running to the middle. I don't know what the hell Josh Draper was doing. Josh Draper ran into his path, which meant that he couldn't hand pass it to Shea Bolton, and then Bolton could have gone inside 50, or Clark could have had a better kick inside 50 rather than bombing it. So there's some examples. You're either getting it into the hands of the person who's not the best kick, or players are making wrong decisions into where they run or where they pass the ball. That's what Justin Longmuir is talking about at the moment, and he needs better players in those positions to be able to do what he's after.
Hi, experts. The AFL ladder is wrong. Given the debacle that was opening round with the ramifications being rolling buys and not all teams having played the same number of games, the ladder should be displayed top to bottom based on A, win percent, then B, for against percentage. This would mean Gold Coast is on top. Would this make club history? Question mark. Sadly, there's no mathematical way of getting Eagles off the bottom either now or for the rest of the season, I fear. I think Richmond might finish below the Eagles, just quietly. Lift AFL, get the ladder correct. Are you meant to be running a professional sporting competition? Are there gambling implications, e.g. punters who may have had a bet on ladder position X after round Y or the like? Cheers, that's Chris from South Perth. The only point I'd make, I think the ladder's fine. It'll sort itself out. I just don't like the opening round and the early buys. I know there was a cyclone, but Gold Coast had a bye after one game.
Yes.
That's ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. And we're not going to have a decent ladder.
There is no integrity around the ladder. We accept that. There is none early. It'll sort itself out, but that's why I think we should roll round one into opening round.
Well, the interesting thing about the ladder, if we address this question specifically, is, as I said, Gold Coast has a 100% win-loss record at the moment. So do Hawthorn, so do Adelaide, so do GWS, all these sorts of teams. But Gold Coast percentage is 277.6. So why aren't they on top of the ladder? Remember when match ratio was part of the ladder in the
Well, they get 4
1990s?
points as opposed to 12. That's why.
But they have a 100% win-loss record. So the question is,
I get what he's saying.
Do we want to see the ladder where it's on what percentage of wins you've had for the year, or do we want it on how many points you've had? Either, regardless of which one you choose, you just need to have some consistency with it. But I can see what he's saying, that Gold Coast have done everything possible. They've got the same percentage of winning games, 100% win-loss record as Hawthorn, but their percentage from a for and against points is better. So why aren't they higher in the ladder? I understand that question. I think it's a very good question and makes perfect sense. Ladders, when you look at basketball, specifically, they're always out as well with which team has the most wins and losses and things like that. So there are other sports where it gets confusing also. This is going to be a dog's breakfast for the whole season. It
is. And to be honest, I mean, it's a great email, and well, thank you for sending it in. But, mate, I don't give two hoots about the ladder in terms of my team until the end of the season. I mean, you want to be up and about, but I don't really even look at it. You look at wins and losses and whether you're going to be top four. That's I think.
Losses is the big one. So the basketball teams always talk about, we don't care what the ladder looks like, except for the one column. That's the losses column, because that's what ultimately decides whether you're going to fall down the ladder. So if you've played 3 games less than the team above you, how many losses have they got? What have you got in hand from the ability to lose a game? And once you get to a certain number of losses, then you're in trouble. So that's the way that I'll be looking at it throughout this season. How many losses is a problem rather than how many wins have you got, or what's your overall percentage and stuff like that. How many losses becomes too many. It'll be the way I'll assess the ladder this year.
Now, Cod, you just mentioned basketball twice.
Yes.
So as we leave this podcast, I want to bring it up with you. How are you feeling? Because the news broke today. We should cue in Beatles music, A Day in the Life here. I heard the news today, oh boy, Bryce is going.
Yeah.
How are you feeling, and what's your take on it?
It's sad for basketball over here. It's sad for Wildcats fans. 9 years.
Gave them 9 seasons. That's
9 seasons as the best player in the comp. Like, we've had the privilege of watching him play. Let's face it. We're not going to see someone arrive in Australia, stay for 9 years and win 5 NBL MVP awards and dominate like he has and score ridiculous numbers that we have. If a player comes along like Bryce into the future, they'll be gone within 2 years, either the NBA or the massive money overseas. We got him for 9 years. So we're extremely lucky to have experienced that and for him to have embraced the state as he did. Any chance of him staying disappeared when he started scoring 59 and 49 and 44 and just all of a sudden teams overseas.
So we expect him to get some big coin in Japan?
Yeah, $1.5 million we're expecting.
Good on him.
Minimum. It's fantastic for him. He's earned it. He knocked back a 10-day contract in the NBA in his first year over here because he wanted to help the Wildcats to win a championship. That may have led to nothing afterwards. It may have led to a hell of a lot of money for him, but he's been well paid by the Wildcats. But this is the opportunity to really make hay.
No chance Melbourne United. Any chance NBL? Do you think?
No.
He said that pretty much, hasn't he?
He'll be overseas. The money for him is overseas. The tax rates for him are overseas. He will earn more money playing overseas than he could ever imagine over here now that he's not going to become an Australian. And he can set his family up for life and then come back here and live in Perth and be as happy as Larry and maybe finish his career off with some nostalgic years with the Wildcats. But he's been a star. We've been so lucky to watch him play, and good luck to him.
Yeah, well said, mate. Thanks for listening. We are brought to you by Tab Touch. Got the touch. Download the Tab Touch app today. What's gambling really costing you? Remember, you can watch or listen to this podcast on YouTube Music. Leave us a rating and a review. And don't forget to follow this podcast so you don't miss an episode. Talk to you on Thursday. Thank you, Cod.
Thanks, Quarters.